Got some notes I want to go through for this video. This is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I've wanted to incorporate in a little bit of like finance stuff because I'm not good at a lot of things. Like athletically, if you watch the elk shape video, you can tell that my ability to do push-ups, it's lacking. It's a struggle. One thing I'm actually okay at is making money, and I think it was probably just a conglomeration of good timing and the right location, like switching careers at the right time. But I've continued to educate myself, and I believe that with all the tools and the education that I've gotten, that I'm going to hopefully have my family set up for the future, that we are financially free, which is fantastic. So I figured I would frame it this way. I wanted to pay for my hunts this year, and I did it in a little bit of a way that I think maybe most people wouldn't think about. So that's aspect number one of the reason I wanted to share this with you. Reason number two is, even if you decide to point this laser beam of like, oh, okay, I'm not going to use this necessarily to pay for my hunting, but I've always wanted to do X, Y, Z. Once you learn the skill, the basic skill of buying an asset like I have bought, you can point that laser beam anywhere. Like, you can use the fruits of that labor and just kind of put it anywhere. If you want to buy, an exotic muscle car. Is that even a thing, an exotic muscle car? If you want to buy an exotic car or a muscle car, if you want to buy a second home somewhere, you get the point. You can point this laser beam anywhere you want to point it. And then the third one, which I think has been boiling under the surface for me, but with the change of the government administration and then just watching the spending that has been happening over the last 2 decades of my life, it terrifies me. Look me in the eyes. It terrifies me. The amount of currency that the United States has printed in the last 12 months is 25% of the US dollars that have ever been in circulation have been printed in the last 12 months. That's terrifying. If that doesn't freak you out, then Google like inflation and just start looking at that. If you make $40,000 or $50,000 a year and you're not buying assets, the government is literally stealing a little bit of your wages as the year goes along. Those are the reasons that I wanted to talk about this one specific deal. This was a horrible deal. A horrible deal. So I'm going to give you a real quick breakdown of what we did. Now, there's some math and some numbers, so if you're not a fan, just hold on. I'll try to make it fast. It'll probably just be like a couple of minutes, and I'll put like some pretty pictures of me driving through the neighborhood, and you'll actually get to see the exterior of the home. I bought the house in 2006. It was $140,000. I called up a buddy of mine who was kind of a shady mortgage broker, and I was like, hey, I found this house. I have zero money, but I really want it. And he was like, give me your social security number, and I'll do the rest. Literally paid $0 down. He screwed me because the interest rate was 6.875 at the time, which was not the rate. I think I probably should have been like in the 6s or high 5s. But I didn't have to come up with any money, and I wanted the house, and magically I closed on the house, no money, beautiful 2,200 square foot stone house in the middle of the ghetto in Nashville, Tennessee. I moved into the house for 2 years, slowly kind of renovating a few things over time. The house was perfectly livable before, but I kind of upgraded a few things and then moved on to the next property and decided to keep that one as a rental. In 2008, when I moved out, the market was, maybe you would remember, the market was doing horrible things. The market spends the next 4 years in the worst housing crisis that the United States has seen since the Great Depression. We had 4 years where if I looked at the value of this home, I probably should have just let it go. Like, I probably should have just said to the bank, listen, this thing's worth $80,000 at this point, I'm done. But I never did that. What I did instead was I rented the house for $1,200 a month, and my monthly payment was $1,100 a month. So there was a $100 spread every month that I was making on that house. If you know anything about rental property, you know that when I say there was a $100 spread, what that really means is that I was losing hundreds of dollars every month by owning that house, because there are always maintenance expenses, always management expenses, tons and tons of cost variables that come with owning rental property. Every single time somebody moved out, it was vacant for a certain duration before somebody would move in. Instead of giving the house up, I just kept writing the check, using the money that I was making from my normal job, writing the check to cover the difference, because I was going to hold on to the house and hold on to the financing as long as I could. This was a horrible deal. Let me reiterate, this was not a good deal. $0 in equity right from the start, bought it at the peak of the market, held it all the way through the downturn, had horrible financing in place. Now we're going to get to the good stuff. In 2014, the market had started to rebound. So there was equity in the house because we'd had 2 or 3 solid years where Nashville had started to turn back up and was looking really good. Like, you could tell that there was going to be something different about Nashville coming out of the recession that we'd had. People were moving here. There was a vibrancy that was coming back to the city that it wasn't like that before. In 2014, I was able to refi the loan onto a 15-year mortgage at 3.25%. So I took my interest rate of 6.875 and cut it by half to 3.25. And I took my 30-year mortgage and I put it on a 15. So the 15 means that every month my total payment is going to be higher, but more of that is going to actually pay off the house. I'm not just giving the bank interest. I'm paying a huge chunk down on the house every month. Because of that interest rate drop, the monthly payments, like the actual dollars going out every month that I told you before were $1,100, it stayed almost exactly the same. But all of a sudden, because I'd converted to a 15-year, the payoff is just going through the roof. Like, I went from probably getting $200 a month going to principal to getting like $600-700 a month. Big difference. So I'm still holding the house. Like, there's nothing fancy has happened, except for the time that it went vacant and 10 like neighborhood kids decided to make the second story their playhouse in between the 2 tenants coming in, and they did $15,000 worth of damage. They were smoking crack. They were smoking crack in the second floor. They called my insurance, had the insurance guy come out, and he was like, yeah, generally we're not going to cover damage from tenants. And I was like, yeah, come take a look. And they were like, oh yeah, here's a check for $15,000. Congratulations. Just kept riding it. Just kept riding the wave. Fast forward to the beginning of this year. I'm looking at my goals. I know that one of the things that I want to do is I want to hunt more this year. So I know that it's going to require time away from work, and I also know that it's going to require capital for me to actually apply for tags and then to actually purchase the gear that I want to purchase and pay for the hunts. What I could have done was I could have sold this house. I could have just sold it. At this point, the mortgage has paid down from $140,000 to $75,000. Could have just sold it, taken the gain, put it in the bank, paid the taxes, and said, we're off and running. But instead, here's what I did. I wanted to keep the house. So I go to the bank and I refinance again. So remember when we started, I had a 30-year mortgage, took it down to a 15, and now I'm back at a 30. I'm back at a 30 at a 2.6% interest rate. 2.6 in 2021 dollars. And what did I tell you before that I was afraid of? I am terrified of inflation and seeing what inflation is going to do to this country over the next 2 decades. I locked in $150,000 of 2021 dollars at 2.6%. So as these dollars start to inflate in the future, I'm paying back this loan with future dollars that are worth far less than the money that I've locked into this house right now. Let's say this house had not gone up in value at all. I safely still could have probably pulled out $30,000. But the reality is, in the time that I've owned the house, it's doubled in value. So now it's worth $300,000. But it gets a little bit better than that, because what I did was I got it rezoned. Now that I'm a builder understanding about certain areas in Nashville where they want more density, I knew that this area had the possibility that I could rezone. So I was able to get it rezoned, and I've got the ability to build 2 more houses on this big half-acre lot. So that increased it by another $150,000 in value. So I go from having a house that was worth $140,000 to having a house that's worth $450,000. I just got lucky. Right place, right time, and then I just held on. We've had other houses that we've bought that we've held on to that didn't have nearly that nice of an upswing. But when you buy a bunch, every once in a while, you're going to get a nice home run, and that's what this one would be, what I consider a home run. So I pulled out $75,000 to pay for all the hunts that I want to do this year. Jocelyn and I bought a new piece of property down south that we're getting ready to build our house, and I wanted some more cash that was free. That 30-year loan at 2.6% on $150,000, my payment went down on the house. Now, I'm going to be paying it off for a lot longer, but I leveraged $150,000 on a $450,000 asset that now rents for $1,800 a month. So why do I care if I'm pushing it out another 30 years? In 10 more years, assuming that the market stays exactly the same, no change, exactly the same, I could go do this again. I could go pull another $75,000 out, not sell the house and have to pay a bunch of taxes, pull another $75,000 out of this house and go do more things with it and allow the tenant to pay that thing down. This is not my only rental property. I've got other ones that are set for pay off, pay all the way down, because I want those for safety for the future. But this is a playhouse. And it's because I've been on this journey for 15 years. This wasn't a thing that just came about in the last 2 years. It wasn't a get-rich-quick thing for me. This was something that was planned out that now I'm finally reaping the fruits from. I've got 2 business partners, and we've been partnered since 2009. And for the first 3 years of the partnership, we would go to bank meetings in one of the guys' 2-door red Honda Civic, where it's got it's super sun faded, and it was a 2-door. So I'd be in a suit crawling into the back of this little tiny Civic that legitimately he'd had all through college, probably cost like $2,500. We would park around the corner from the bank to walk in to make sure they didn't see us. One of the partners had a red Jeep Cherokee that he drove all through college, that he drove his entire adult life until 2 years ago. I have not been quite as disciplined when it comes to cars, because I like cars, and so I've kind of bought and sold stuff over time. But the point is, we've made sacrifices to get to where we are, and it was long-term planning. And this is one of the things that I think hunters are good at long-term planning. How many points do you have in different areas? Are you trying to draw for a moose that you know is going to take 10 years? You're putting in year after year. If you're thinking about goat or sheep, you're putting in over a long duration. You're thinking a year ahead in your life. I've got to apply for all the tags that I want to apply for. Like, hunters that actually do this the right way are the perfect real estate investors, or the perfect investors at all. People that are willing to sacrifice in the short term for longer term gains. It is 100% just about that mentality. And then it's about saying, I would rather buy assets than buy stuff that goes down in value. I would rather buy stuff that goes up in value than stuff that goes down. And if you literally just reframe a little bit, that's all it takes. I don't care where you are in your life. I don't care if you make $10,000. I don't care if you make $150,000, $200,000, $250,000. If you are not focusing on building more income for the life that you want now and buying more assets for the future, you're relying on the government to take care of you in the future, your kids, your family, you have no idea, just whatever. I'm super passionate about it, and I feel like the hunting community and the type of character that a lot of these people have in this community, they're the ones that I want to be rich. They're the ones that I want to be rich because when you have money, you have power. And I don't care if this entire board game of America and capitalism, I don't care how screwed up it is. It's totally screwed up. That's not the point. The point is, play the game the way the rules are set forward, get great at that game, and then change the rules. It's not the people that are making $10,000 a year holding signs on the side of the road saying capitalism is, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Those are not the people that affect change. The people that get stuff done are the people who are in power, the people with resources, the people with money. And I want you to be one of those people. Buy my course below for $39.95. I'm just kidding. I don't have a course that I'm selling. But it did feel that way, didn't it? It felt like I was kind of getting to some sort of pitch. It's not. I'm not. If I wanted to make money on YouTube, like if that was my goal, I would definitely go start like a finance channel. They get paid a bunch more and there's a lot more people interested in it. I do these hunting videos because I love hunting. I love archery. I love the community, and I want people in this community to pick their heads up out of their daily lives. Stop worrying about the short term, start thinking about the long term and making sacrifices to make that happen. That was a lot. That was a lot. I promise I'm still going to do archery videos. Thank you for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.